Today I'm going to show you a fascinating project. We are taking part in decarbonizing a 10-bedroom period mansion using a combination of heat pumps, solar PV and battery storage. The aim of the project is to reduce the running costs by up to £10,000 and also cut carbon emissions by some 25 tons a year. This is where the oil needed to run this property's heating and hot water is stored. It needs to be filled twice a year, which means it takes around 10,000 liters to keep the property warm and hot water running at a cost of between £6,500 and £10,000, depending on the current price of oil. The system's aging, the tank has developed a leak, and the oil boiler has strangely been installed inside the property. This 70 kilowatt oil monster smells like a petrol station. It's aging, it requires a lot of maintenance. But fear not, we will be taking this part of the plant room out completely and rebuilding it from scratch. And I said part of the plant room because there's another floor below us. We are now below the boiler and this is where the existing hot water cylinder is. We also have those 4 pipes going underground all the way to the heat pumps. And why are they underground? Well, let me show you why. One of the conditions for us to be allowed to install heat pumps here was not to spoil the look of this beautiful garden. So those underground pipes are running, well, below my feet, and they go over there to the stables. To run the house, we are using 2 12 kilowatt Aerotherm Plus heat pumps from Vaillant, and this is also where the underground pipework is coming out. We are around 35 meters away from the property, and you can hear people throwing arbitrary numbers such as heat pumps shouldn't be further away than 15 meters from a house. The truth is a bit more complex. Heat pumps can be as far from the house as physics and calculations allow you. In this case, for example, units have circulators that have 50 kilopascals pump head available, and this pipework will use up 14 of those kilopascals. So we are still left with plenty pump pressure. Bottom line is, you can put heat pumps as far as the calculations allow you. But what about heat loss on this pipework? Well, that's just another thing you have to calculate. We know the ground temperature is around 10 degrees. We know our design temperature, which is 50. So the difference between ground and our flow is 40. We know, looking at the manufacturer's tables, that this pipework will lose around 7 watts per linear meter. 140 meters of pipework, we are going to be losing around 980 watts, or around maybe 500 watts per heat pump. It might sound like a lot. However, when you take into the account the full output of those units being 25 kilowatts, which is full load of the property, that only is 4% of the overall system capacity. Not dramatic, and allows us not to have those units spoiling this beautiful view. The way we're going to power our heat pumps is with solar PV. We've got around 200 panels, each one of them is around 400 watts, so total capacity of the system is 80 kilowatts. Some of the panels are here in the field, some are on top of the old stables. The old stables is the place where our energy hub is being currently installed, so a place that will store the batteries, inverters, a consumer unit and other electrical switching. Those panels will also power the house, car charging and electric fence to protect the chickens from the foxes. So this is the electrical setup being currently installed. And over there we've got those racks that are supposed to take the battery modules. We'll come back here when this plant room is up and running. This boiler is rated at 82 kilowatts input and 76.9 kilowatts output, which would suggest an efficiency of 94%. Obviously it's only theoretical because it's been running on a high temperature setup. If it was running on a low temperature setup, maybe it could have been that efficient. It's been here for 24 years. And in that time, it went through 250,000 liters of oil. I'll leave it to you to calculate the cost of 250,000 liters of oil and the carbon emissions. And look at this burner. Wow. 1, 2, go! A bit stuck here. Someone move this boiler out of the way, please. Boiler is out, and now our job is to make a new plant room. You can see there's tons of pipework because we had 13 heating zones, 3 separate cylinders, heating zone for the garage plus the swimming pool. We're gonna simplify it a lot, make it look nice and neat, and I will explain the control strategy and how we are simplifying the zoning of this property later on in the video. It not only needs to perform well, it also needs to look really nice, especially if your system is inefficient, because people will look at it and go, "No, that's probably something we're doing wrong. This looks too nice not to perform well." So always make sure your system looks very nice and post it on Instagram. Obviously, knowing my luck, I've hit a 25mm by 25mm metal bar going exactly in the middle of my cores. So that's fun coring through those, and I have no other choice. I have to core through them. Probably ruin my core at the same time. She always wanted to be a musician, I think. We've managed to core through this slab. Wasn't easy. And we've got our primary pipework, so 2 sets of flow and returns going upstairs to the plant room. What we have here is isolating valves. There'll be 2 drain cocks and 2 strainers on the returns to both heat pumps. And we had to remove all this pipework that was here previously, and we have to reconnect it. We'll run it on this board. A little bit of work left to do here. And then we start assembling the plant room, finally. And if you need to know size of this pipework, if it's not obvious from watching the video, this is all 35mm copper. So each heat pump has 35mm copper coming off 40mm, I don't know if it's MLCP or plastic pipework. Some composite pipework, size 40mm going to 35mm copper. It's time to build the distribution header, 54mm copper, simply because we have 4,000 liters flow rate. So we need a 54mm copper to drop the velocity, top of my head, to around 0.6 meters per second. So that 2 circulators in the heat pump outside don't interfere with each other, and same wouldn't happen with 3 circulators we'll have on a pump plan for 3 zones in the house. This is where the big guns have to come out. So I'm getting there with my plant room. Let me show you what I've done. We've got a bypass buffer on 2-pipe setup, 54mm distribution headers, all 12 or 13 zones consolidated into 3 zones. And what's left to do here is a distribution header for those zones, but it's going to be on a pump plan. So main house, all of the ground floor of the house, some I think 300 square meters, will run on this pump, plus the outhouse rental property will run on this pump as well. Then top of the house will be split into 2 zones, one side, the other side. I think they're quite equal on those 2 pumps. Then the returns will come back here. Those are my flashing points. Expansion vessel will be connected to here. Then we have 2 heat meters from good people of Open Energy Monitor. They supply this whole kit, so we'll be able to see how it performs. And flow returns going back to the heat pumps. And what's interesting is that we will have a cylinder here, unvented cylinder that will pipe as vented, because the setup is vented. They wanted to keep it this way. Also, this is middle of the property, so quite hard to take temperature pressure relief out. This is my diverter valve, SB diverter valve for hot water. And the return for hot water will go here. And what is this pump doing? This is the interesting bit. So this whole heating system used to be vented. We're gonna seal the system, which I'm slightly nervous about because, you know, we might get leaks. Hopefully we won't. But we are retaining the header tank, and this is the fuel for our mini system, and this is the vent to the mini system, and a pump for towel rails. And that pump will run the towel rails, and it will run on a little boiler, direct electric boiler running on solar PV that Marie has done downstairs while I was putting this room together. So we had this existing vented cylinder. It's a direct cylinder without a coil. We no longer need it for hot water, so we converted it into a store of energy, and we're going to use it to run towel rails. So the way it's going to be done, there are 2 3 kilowatt immersion heaters. We're probably just going to use one. It's going to be charged to 60, maybe 70 degrees using excess solar PV, because there's tons of excess solar PV in the summer. And then that pump I showed you upstairs will circulate that 60, 70 degree water around 6 or 7 bathrooms throughout the property. The benefit of doing towel rail circuit in this way is we're not throwing away the cylinder, we're reusing it. We can run the towel rail circuit at much higher temperatures than we would have done otherwise with the heat pumps. We're using excess solar PV, that's free anyway, and also we're not putting a undue strain on heat pump compressors with a pretty small load in the shoulder mounts or in the summer. So far, it was relatively straightforward to get this plant room look nice and neat because I didn't have to connect to any of the existing pipework. Most of it is here above in this part of the plant room on the top, and I really have to draw it out now. First of all, not to lose track of what is going on there, and secondly, to make it look half decent and not to back myself into a corner that I wouldn't have a way out later on. We've started wiring the setup. You can see controls being wired behind me. And while Marie is doing the controls wiring, I'm gonna start flushing the system. I've pressurized the plant room only. I've got heat pumps isolated below me in the plant room on the floor below. All the heating zones are isolated as well. So let's say I'm gonna open this one now and see if the pressure doesn't drop on this particular zone. We've got 4 gauges. This is top floor, that side of the house. This is top floor, that side of the house. This is all of the ground floor. And that pressure gauge there is a garage and the outhouse, some 20 meters away from the main building. The reason why I am having all those pressure gauges here is the fact that the system used to be vented. And if we get a leak somewhere in the house and we can't pinpoint it to at least quarter of the house, we're going to have a massive job finding it. So hopefully we won't get any leaks, but if we do, we'll be able to isolate sections of the house, or we can even work on a section of the house while the system is still running. So we will have tons and tons of air. And as you can see, I'm using manual bleeding points. I don't really like auto air vents. I believe auto air vents just should be shut after commissioning. That's why I don't use them, manual ones. Because people leave them open and it causes leaks or causes wrongly installed systems to suck air into the system as well, causes corrosion. So manual ones are much better. And we also do not have any vents on the cylinder. I'm also interested on the flow rate we're gonna get on those heat pumps. We need 2,000 liters minimum per unit. I'm happy to report that we are getting over 2,000 liters flow. So the primary pipework and everything on the pipework is fine. We're gonna have heating very soon once all this air is purged. Quite a walk to those heat pumps to show you that they are running. That's the one that has a problem with the antifreeze valve. And this unit It's running the heating for the first time. Great. So the system is working. Radiators are getting warm. You're getting 33 degrees already. It's kind of surprising that we didn't have any more issues. Just one leaking antifreeze valve and one leak downstairs now fixed. Fired it up. Hey, it's okay. And it didn't even take that long to bleed itself. And we have monitoring on it, so I'm gonna plug it in a second and we'll be able to watch the efficiency of this setup. Inside the property, most radiators have been changed with K3s, just to save on the footprint and get them to the similar size that they used to have, which were, I believe, single panel, maybe one convector rats. We're gonna take a thermal camera and make sure they're all warming up nicely and evenly. We've run the heating now for over an hour and it's running up to the temperature. Right now with 10 degrees outside, the system is designed to 50 degrees, but with 10 degrees it's running 30 to 33 degrees. And if you need to know the power consumption for this system on a 600 square meter house, 25 kilowatt heat loss, right now we're only running half of it, 300 square meters on the ground floor, and the power consumption is 900 watts. So not a lot for a property of this size. Marie has reconnected the towel rail circuit to the old vented tank, and this is our old vented cylinder converted into a heat store that we're gonna use for accumulating energy by direct electric immersion heaters. So we just have to vent it, bleed all the towel rails, power it up and see if we get circulation and heating through the towel rail circuit. Now finally we are running all zones. All 3 zones in the main house and rental outhouse is running as well. Just on one heat pump right now, around 10 degrees outside. Power consumption of the heat pump is 1.5 kilowatts running 30 degree flow for around, I would imagine, 660 square meters of properties. So we've got 2 separate buildings. This setup has been now running for 2 days. And as you can see, most pipework is uninsulated. The reason being, this is an internal room. There isn't a single external wall here. And we also have a floor above us. So this whole of that pipework acts as an additional radiator, probably boosting the efficiency of the system. We also got asked not to insulate most of the pipework because this room will be used for proving dough for bread, so they want to keep it warm. Obviously we insulated hot water pipes, flow return going to the cylinder as well, and the other part of the plant room below my feet in the cellar, that's also fully insulated. But the best part of this whole setup is that it's been running for the last 2 days fully off grid. Let me show you what's been powering it. So those 200 solar panels are charging a very extensive battery bank. Those batteries are in temporary location because the main power plant room is not ready yet. They will be moved soon. I can't disclose the size of this battery bank. All I can say is that fully charged, they can run the whole house and both heat pumps in the middle of the winter for at least a week. Those battery modules are reused from electric vehicles, which made the whole installation financially viable. But what happens when the sun doesn't shine? Although the heat pumps are not directly connected to the grid, the battery system is, which allows for topping up of the batteries from the grid at cheaper overnight tariff, and realistically they can charge around 50 kilowatt hours at the cheaper tariff, which means it's more than enough energy to run both heat pumps for heating and hot water in the middle of the winter throughout the day. And it also means that the highest cost they can expect for running this setup, even if there is no solar generation whatsoever, is around £3 a day. Let's address comments about installation cost and payback times. This setup that we installed, heat pumps, plant room cylinder, will pay for itself in 3 years. A little bit less if you take the grant into the account as well. Now, it doesn't include solar PV and battery storage because we didn't install it. If we were to include those costs into the installation, then the payback time is still super quick. According to the owners, 5 years time. I would probably say around maybe 8 years time. The caveat here is the owner of this property runs his own business, has access to cheaper trade materials and also his own labor. So he did a lot of work himself. If you were to go through regular commercial channels, the payback on this system, on this property would have been probably between 15 and 20 years, which still isn't that bad, provided the system is installed well, designed well, and runs efficiently, obviously. You also have to remember about the fact that the existing oil boiler needed replacing anyway and probably moving outside. The plant room needed rebuilding. The oil tank was leaking, so they needed new oil tank. Not only that, they needed more capacity, so they really needed 2 oil tanks. Take that into the account, and the system we installed pretty much already paid for itself, as the cost of replacing the oil boiler with all the other kit wouldn't have been much cheaper than what we have done. Heat pumps are really magical devices, as they give you free energy. They transfer energy from the outside to the inside. Some people say they should really be called energy multipliers. And as you can see, they can not only save the environment, they can also save you tons of money. The key here is understanding how to design the system well and how to run them efficiently. I'm sure we'll be back here because I'm very curious how this system will perform over the winter. So watch out for a follow-up video. And if you enjoyed this video, you will definitely enjoy this one, where we installed another large twin heat pump setup in London last year.